Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, all. This meeting is called to order. Ms. Trowman, is anyone signing up for public comment? Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
How are we today?
Very well, thanks.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
No cases to reconsider under agenda item 3.
Correct, no cases.
Let's see, no tax cases on docket 51,
Correct, no cases.
no fair housing cases.
No cases.
No child labor cases.
No cases.
Let's see, no wage claim cases that have been pulled for additional discussion.
That's correct. None pulled for additional discussion, but you should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 51.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 51.
I second the motion, except for those cases in which I am dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 51.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting is reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 51.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's consider unemployment insurance cases on docket 51. Please proceed when you're ready.
The first two cases will be called together. Case number 353-7709 and 354-0118. Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decisions in companion cases 353-7709 and 354-0118 are not supportable. They are similar to many other cases from 2021 and 2022 in which the employer was not told on chargeback or reimbursement liability notices sent during the pandemic that it could have dealt with its claim volume problem by simply sending TWC a spreadsheet of all the notices that it needed to protest or appeal. The dates in this case fall during the timeframe of the pandemic in which claimants, employers, and TWC were all continuing to be overwhelmed by volumes of claims, appeals, and related proceedings. If the employer had the proper information, it could have responded to the reimbursement liability notice on time. Accordingly, as we did in similar cases in 2021 and 22, we should reverse the AT decisions, hold the employer's appeals timely, and resubmit the cases on merits of the reimbursement liability issues.
The AT decision is correct. The wage verification notice was received by the employer at its correct address of record, and the employer failed to respond until 2 years after the appeal deadline provided by the commission. The employer testified that their appeal was late because it was not possible to respond to everything sent to them by the commission due to the pandemic. However, the pandemic technical difficulties exception should not apply since the notice was not sent to the employer until 8/4/20. Also, since there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rule, the employer's appeal should be dismissed as late. Affirm the AT, late employer appeal, bill reimbursing employer.
Timely employer appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case. Both of them.
Case number 307-0257. Commissioner Trevino.
The AT3 decision is not supportable. There was an extensive delay in scheduling the employer's appeal for the AT1 hearing, which was not the claimant's fault. And due to this delay, the claimant had no way of knowing that the initial determination, which qualified her for receipt of benefits, had been appealed. The claimant had stopped filing payment requests when she exhausted her maximum benefit amount almost 2 months before the AT1 hearing was scheduled, and did not know that she needed to continue to monitor her email or mail in case she received documents from the commission. The claimant's petition to reopen was late because of this delay, which constitutes commission misinformation. Reverse the AT3 decision, deem timely the claimant's petition to reopen, and resubmit for merits.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant was late in filing her Rule 16 petition to reopen. While I empathize with the reason for the claimant missing the deadline, she missed the deadline to file a timely petition due to personal reasons. While these personal reasons may have constituted good cause to miss an AT hearing, they're not sufficient to overcome the timeliness issue that is currently before us because there are no good cause exemptions to the timeliness rules. Therefore, the claimant's petition should be denied. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT3 decision, late claimant Rule 16 petition to reopen, leave the underlying decision in full force and effect, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Untimely petition to reopen, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3105221, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. The original chargeback notice was mailed on April 27th, 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And the evidence shows that the employer was under legitimate impression that there would be no chargebacks for this COVID-related UI claims. Since that was why its original protest was late and was also why its appeal from the late protest ruling was late, the employer should come under the same protection from chargeback that it would have had under the notice of chargeback review program that was implemented in 2022. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer filed a timely appeal. The employer filed a timely protest and resubmit the case on the chargeback issue.
The decision is correct. The charge liability decision was mailed to the employer and the employer received it. The employer provided no argument for why the appeal was not filed timely and only testified that they did not know why it was not appealed on time. Since there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, the employer appeal should be dismissed as late. Affirm the AT, employer appeal not timely, late response to notice of maximum potential chargeback, charge the employer's account.
Timely employer appeal, timely response to the NMPC, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3214937, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claim notice was mailed on April 27th, 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And the employer gave clear and credible testimony that the business or restaurant that was closed due to a COVID-related shutdown and did not receive the mailed notice of claim. Although its protest was late, the delay was due to non-receipt of the notice. The issue of chargeback is at issue because the claimant's work separation was due to a temporary layoff necessitated by the restaurant shutdown during the pandemic. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer filed a timely protest, resubmit the case on the work separation and chargeback issues.
The AT decision is supportable. The employer provided no firsthand testimony regarding whether the notice of claim was received at the time it was mailed. The employer presented insufficient evidence to refute the presumption of receipt, and the employer's protest should not be deemed timely. Affirm the AT, late protest, the determination approving the claimant for benefits under section 207.044 of the Act remains in full force and effect.
Timely protest, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3276627, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was discharged because he refused to follow the employer's policy, which required unvaccinated employees to submit COVID test results twice a month. Although the claimant submitted a request for an exemption, the employer's undisputed testimony established that the claimant did not complete the exemption documents. Furthermore, the claimant's concerns about providing his DNA to the employer were resolved when the employer allowed the claimant to take COVID tests at home and simply post his results. Thus, because the claimant refused to follow the employer's reasonable request after prior warnings, he was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision, valid claim, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The claimant filed a valid initial claim, and he had been discharged prior to filing the claim. Regarding the job separation, the employer did not inform the claimant of the vaccine or COVID testing requirement when he was initially hired. The employer then changed the employment agreement to require employees to either be vaccinated or submit to regular testing. The claimant requested a religious exemption to these requirements, but the employer denied his request. The claimant's refusal to accept these substantial changes to his hiring agreement did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Valid claim, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
A short form dissent on the reimbursement issue.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3372764, Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with granting the claimant's MR and setting aside the prior CA decision. However, the claimant's CA appeal should be deemed timely. The claimant submitted documentary evidence that he sent a faxed appeal to the commission within the appeal timeframe, and the fax was transmitted successfully. The claimant also provided credible firsthand testimony that he had submitted the appeal timely. As such, the MR should be granted, the prior CA decision set aside, and the CA decision deemed timely, and the case should be resubmitted for merits of testimony.
First, from a procedural standpoint, the claimant's motion for rehearing should be granted, and we should set aside the prior CA decision. Regarding the timeliness of the claimant's appeal to the commission, the evidence in this case establishes that the claimant was late in filing his commission appeal. Accordingly, it should be dismissed as late. We should therefore grant the claimant's motion for rehearing and set aside the prior CA decision. We should also dismiss the claimant's appeal to the commission as late and leave the underlying decision in full force and effect. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employee response.
Grant the motion for rehearing, set aside previous CA decision, timely commission appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3582955, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was discharged when he refused to take an injury-related drug test. To comply with the protocols of its workers' compensation provider, the employer required the claimant to submit a second drug test screening after results of the first came back inconclusive. The claimant had to acknowledge the employer's policy, which specified that refusal to take a drug test could result in termination of employment. Since the claimant was aware of the employer's policy, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment by refusing to adhere to the employer's drug test policy. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is supportable. After the claimant was injured on the job, the employer required the claimant to submit to a drug screen. The claimant complied and went to the employer's third-party administrator to take a drug test. 2 weeks later, the testing facility informed the employer that the claimant's test results were inconclusive. The employer then told the claimant that he would have to submit to a second test. The claimant refused because he wasn't told why he had to take a second test and had not seen the results from the first test. The claimant was discharged for refusing to submit to the second drug test under these circumstances, and his actions do not rise to the level of misconduct. We should affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3448548, Commissioner Trevino.
The motion for rehearing should be granted. The claimant was offered new evidence in the form of a statement from a vendor who verified that the employer told them that the claimant was fired. This statement was not offered earlier because the claimant just received the vendor's statement. Additionally, the claimant indicates that another witness just came forward who can also confirm that the employer discharged the claimant. Since this case hinges on whether the claimant was fired or quit, the claimant has satisfied all the criteria for granting a new hearing, as she was offered new evidence, provided a compelling reason for new evidence was not available earlier, and explained how considering this new evidence will change the outcome of the case. Therefore, we should grant the motion for rehearing.
We should deny the motion for rehearing. The claimant offers new evidence, yet fails to provide a compelling reason why this new evidence was not offered earlier. Furthermore, there is no specific explanation on how consideration of the secondhand hearsay evidence would overcome the party's sworn firsthand testimony and change the outcome of the case. Thus, because the claimant failed to meet the three required criteria, we should deny our motion for rehearing.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number three. Case number 354 7. I'm sorry, 3479318. Commissioner Esparza, my apologies.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant's non-harassment policy promoted a workplace without horseplay and the use of profanity or otherwise offensive behavior. The claimant was terminated when he made an insensitive racial joke at the workplace. Because the claimant was previously warned for similar instances of inappropriate contact and unprofessional behavior, the claimant's continued violation of the employer's rule was mismanagement of his position of employment and misconduct connected with the work. As such, we should affirm the AT decision misconduct.
The AT decision is not supportable. The employer terminated the claimant based on allegations that he used an offensive word and made an inappropriate joke that was overheard by a coworker. The claimant was telling a story to another coworker about an event that took place 30 years ago. The claimant denied under oath that the employer's allegations and his comments were made to anyone specifically. The employer only presented secondhand hearsay evidence to prove that the allegations of misconduct. As such, the employer has presented insufficient evidence to prove that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct.
Misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And just to clarify for the record, we just voted case number 3479318.
Thank you.
Case number 3513751. Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not fully supportable. I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. Regarding the job separation, the claimant had worked for the employer for almost 2 years when she was assigned to a different department and position. The employer alleged that the claimant was discharged because she made too many mistakes once her position was changed. But there is no evidence that the claimant was ever able to meet the employer's expectations in the new position. The claimant testified that she made errors because the job was new to her. The employer provided no evidence that the claimant's duties were simple and that she had inability to perform them and that would constitute misconduct. Therefore, the claimant was discharged due to her inability to meet the employer's performance expectations in her new job, which is not misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct. And the alternative, since there is no specific testimony taken regarding how long the claimant worked in the new position or the complexity of her new duties or job duties, I would agree to rehear this case to take additional testimony regarding how long the claimant performed her new duties and how much time she was given to improve her work.
The appeal tribunal's decision should be affirmed in all respects. I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. As to the job separation, the claimant was fired for poor job performance. The type of work the claimant was tasked with does not appear to be highly complex. Moreover, the employer stated that the claimant could have caught the errors had she double-checked her work. As such, the claimant's poor job performance constituted misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a valid claim, misconduct.
Valid claim, misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3534038. Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. First, I disagree with the AT's conclusion that the employer initiated the job separation. The claimant's progressive disciplinary policy allowed for decision-making leave prior to discharge. Although the claimant alleged that he was terminated for a work-related event, the employer never made an unequivocal expression of its intent to terminate the claimant. Moreover, the employer contacted the claimant to inform him about the decision-making leave and to clarify his job status. The claimant refused to respond. Since the preponderance of the evidence shows that the claimant quit when continued work was still available, the claimant's separation was a voluntary quit without work-connected good cause. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant did not quit his job. He was discharged from his job for missing a phone call from the owner of the business while he was working on a job site. The employer failed to follow its own progressive discipline policy, which would have required the business to place the claimant on paid leave while he wrote a personal improvement plan. Therefore, since the employer terminated the claimant before complying with the terms of its own disciplinary procedure, the claimant's actions were not misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3541800, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant, a 20-year employee for the company, was discharged based on allegations that he directed other employees to violate the employer's guidelines and manipulated inventory. The claimant provided credible and consistent firsthand testimony denying the allegations of misconduct, and the employer presented only secondhand hearsay statements taken during their investigation. Therefore, the employer has failed to meet their burden of proving that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant was fired for manipulating inventory. The employer testified that its investigation into the claimant's activity was done by a neutral party, which bolsters its credibility. The employer also testified that the other associates who were investigated for the same activity were also terminated. As such, the employer's evidence is sufficient to overcome the claimant's denial. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
No misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3543264, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant for performance issues. The employer's witness clearly testified that the claimant never demonstrated an ability to meet the employer's performance expectations. The claimant testified that he was working to the best of his ability, but that his performance suffered because the employer's systems were inconsistent. It is well-established commission precedence that the claimant's inability to meet the employer's performance standards does not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Additionally, the claimant's position was a salaried manager, so his job duties were not just simple tasks that he failed to complete properly. Therefore, we should affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant received multiple warnings and was placed on performance improvement plan because he was failing to carry out basic job duties. Duties included keeping store aisles presentable, organizing merchandise and pricing, and placing items correctly. These were not difficult tasks, and the claimant should have been able to perform them. By his continued failure to carry out his assigned duties, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3544537, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. The claimant was discharged for failing to renew his professional license. The claimant was working for the employer in a position where he was not required to have a license at the time his license expired. Despite this, the claimant had attempted to renew his license, but he needed information from the employer to do so. The claimant made several attempts to obtain the information from his supervisor in the months prior to the expiration of his license, but the claimant's supervisor did not provide him with the required information in a timely manner, and the claimant's license expired. The claimant's position was then eliminated by the employer, and he could not accept the position that he was offered because it required a valid license. Since the claimant was not working in the position that required a license when his license expired, Since the employer failed to provide him with the information required to renew his license prior to his licensing expiration. And since the claimant's position that he was working at the end of his employment was eliminated, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant failed to satisfy the condition of continued employment. Specifically, the claimant was required to have his license renewed by a certain date, and the claimant failed to do so. Moreover, the claimant stated that it was the employee's responsibility to make sure their license was renewed. While the claimant stated that the position he was in did not require a license, he ratified the employer's transfer to a licensed position by actively pursuing the renewal of his license. Therefore, because the claimant failed to satisfy a condition of continued employment, his actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision misconduct.
Misconduct.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And that was the last unemployment insurance case pulled for additional discussion on docket 51. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 51.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 51.
I second the motion, except for those cases on which I am dissenting, as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 51.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 51.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to the end of agenda items 1 through 8. We'll pause for a short recess.
And happy holidays, commissioners.
Thank you. Same to you. All right, this is agenda item 9, Texas Industry Recognized Apprenticeship Program Parameters.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Sarna. For the record, Carrie Ballas, Workforce Development Division. There's approximately $9,876,000 available for the Tyra Grant Program for fiscal year 2024. Prior to publication of the application, parameters for the FY24 Tyra Grant Program should be established. The guidance is in accordance with TWC Commission Rule 838.12. Today, staff recommend the following. Applicants must not have received apprenticeship-related funding made available through TWC in fiscal year 2024. And the cost per participant will be near or equal to costs listed for comparable training programs on the statewide eligible training provider list, or when costs are justified, up to $7,500 per participant. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
I have a comment, Chairman. Regarding staff's first parameter recommendation, the applicants may not have received apprenticeship-related funding through TWC in fiscal year 2024. I would like to note that this parameter appears to contradict the Texas Labor Code, Section 302.255, which sets applicant eligibility, and TWC Rule Chapter 838, Part 3 of Public Comments Responses, which states TWC staff have communicated with DOL's Office of Apprenticeship relating to the flexibility for IRAPs, or for RAPs, to participate in TIRA and determine such flexibility is allowable. Since this is the first year of the TIRA grant program, it is important to promote and encourage innovation and the development of programs that meet the already defined TIRA grant eligibility requirement. It would not be the best in the best interests of the program to exclude applicants who are developing new and innovative programs to complement existing RAP programs, which seek to build a pipeline for upskilling workers and apprenticeship participants. I would be agreeable to parameters which clarifies that an applicant may not simultaneously use TIRA grant program funds with existing apprenticeship-related funding made available through TWC and FY24 for TIRA grant program participants. Now, regarding staff's second parameter recommendation, Texas Labor Code Section 302.256B 1 through 2 clearly outlines that the amount award cost per participant may not exceed the lesser of the total cost of the person for training the participant, excluding wages and benefits, or $10,000. Under Labor Code Section 302.256D, the Commission may establish limitations on the total amount of the grant funds that the person may be awarded, but does not authorize TWC to set further limitations to the cost per participant outlined in Section 302.256B 1 through 2.
I do have a question, Chairman. The legislature laid out the cap here at 10,000. And Texas Workforce Commission has amended that to 7,500. Could you give just a quick explanation on what the discrepancy is between legislature, what the legislature set out and why we targeted a little bit lower?
Yes, sir. When staff, as you are very well aware, when money is funded for programs such as this, we also receive performance measures through the Legislative Budget Board that we need to meet. In doing our calculations, if we were to go with the full cap, it's very likely we would not hit those performance measures. That's why staff thought perhaps 7,500 would be a little bit more attainable in us meeting those measures.
Is there an ability for, if an applicant exceeds that, would they be considered, or is that the cap for, is that what we're setting, and nothing, no applicants would be considered at a higher level if that was needed?
Most likely what we would do is we would go back and negotiate with them to that 7,500.
Okay.
If they were agreeable to that.
Agreeable. Okay, thank you so much.
So 7,500 is basically whatever the performance measure is divided into the 9.8 million.
Yes,
That's how
sir.
you got to
Yes, sir.
7,500.
Just about. We're also anticipating some to come in slightly lower by virtue of comparable trainings on the ETPL.
Commissioner Trevino, you present an interesting point. If I want to make sure I understand your initial point completely. So your concern is that you think the staff recommendation on FY24 funds are prohibited. If they receive any apprenticeship funds, they would not be eligible to participate in the program at all. And your suggestion is that you are agreeable that if they had apprenticeship funds for a specific apprenticeship program, that you would not want them to be able to stack new TIRA funds on their old program, but you don't want to prohibit them from coming forward with a new program.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, since this is a brand new program, we don't know who has applied yet. And it would be wrong for us to deny those that are coming up with innovative programs that could support and train a new workforce and have that pipeline of in-demand workers.
I have not contemplated that. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we amend the current discussion paper with my suggested edits.
A second.
Can you go back over your suggested edits one more time?
Yes.
for me?
That the applicant may not simultaneously use TIRA grant program funds with existing apprenticeship related funding made available through TWC and FY24 for TIRA grant program participants, and to remove staff's second parameter.
It's been moved and seconded. Motion carries. Thank you. All right.
Excuse me, does this also include, Commissioner Trevino, the change from 75 to 10, or just that first item?
No, it would change that second item to allow it to be up to what the statute requires
Okay,
of 10.
all right. I just want to make sure that it was on both items.
All right. Thank you. This is agenda item 10, statewide initiative to provide upskilling and training.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Joel Mullins with the Workforce Development Division. Before you today is a proposal for the distribution of WIOA statewide funds to local workforce development boards. Staff has identified a significant need to provide support for upskilling and training for occupations in high-demand industries such as healthcare, transportation, semiconductor and technology, broadband, and construction. Local workforce development boards are in an excellent position to address this need by partnering with employers, colleges, nonprofit and community organizations, and training providers that support upskilling and training in high-demand jobs. Today, staff recommends the distribution to boards of $3 million in WIOA statewide funds to provide upskilling in high-demand occupations and/or training that leads to industry-recognized credentials in high-demand occupations. The distribution amounts include a $50,000 base amount and align with the 2024 WIOA formula funds distribution methodology. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
So with this accounting for this allocation and the one for the gap funding last week, do we know a number on how much is left for future projects?
I believe that the reserve balance as of yesterday was $8,922,895. So I believe it would be 3 million less than that. It would go
Okay.
down to 5.9 million.
Thank you.
So this concept did not come up when we had our work session on programs for both WIOA and TANF funding back during warmer weather. How is this different, or how does this complement a couple of the other upskilling programs that we have? I'm thinking specifically of like Upskill Texas. I'm thinking somewhat of the Skills Development Fund. How is this both different and complementary to those existing upskilling and reskilling programs?
In this case, we're giving the board, distributing the funds directly to the boards, and kind of allowing them as much flexibility as possible to address their, regional demand.
And what do we think the boards are going to do that the other programs don't do?
I think one of the things is just quickly get individuals into training programs that are for any in-demand industries in their area. With these statewide funds are more flexible than their formula funds, so they'll be doing a lot of the same things that they're doing with their formula funds, but just able to do it a little quicker. Additionally, on the upskilling side of things, some boards have existing partnerships with community colleges and industry in their area, where they're already putting individuals through kind of short-term programs to get them OSHA certificates and that sort of thing, and then getting them quickly into jobs.
All right, any other comments or questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move to approve the distribution to boards of $3 million in WIOA statewide funds with the $50 base amount to provide upskilling in high-demand occupations and/or training that leads to recognized credentials in high-demand occupations as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
Commissioner, if I could, I think you just took a pause for a breath. You said a $50 base
Oh,
amount. I wanna
excuse
know if
me,
that's-
appreciate that. With a $50,000.
Okay.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. It's vote unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 11, appointments to the JET Advisory Board.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Lori Knight with the Education Outreach Department at TWC. TWC's appointment to the JET Grant Advisory Board has expired. Staff is recommending that we reappoint Scott Norman to continue serving on the JET Advisory Board. So staff is seeking the commission's approval to reappoint Scott Norman to the JET Grant Advisory Board. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
I have a quick comment. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Scott for his work and efforts, which continue to strengthen and develop the construction workforce in Texas.
Thank you.
No question.
He's been a very engaged member of the JED Advisory Board. He's done a great job. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move to reappoint Scott Norman to serve a 2-year term on the Jobs and Education for Texans Advisory Board.
My second.
It's been moved second, vote unanimous. Thank you. This is agenda item 12, annual occupational shortage report.
Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, my name is Mariana Vega. I'm the Director for Labor Market Information at the Texas Workforce Commission. And today, for your consideration and possible action, you do have before you the annual report on growth occupations to the governor, lieutenant governor, legislature. And this is regarding projected shortages in high wage, high demand occupations. We did produce this report to satisfy the legislative requirements of HB 2478. Your offices did receive a copy of the report and you were briefed. For this report, we did examine over 800 occupations and we did segment them by the 13 major industries identified in the Texas Labor Code. We did define high wage, high demand jobs as being those occupations with an annual median pay that is estimated to be more than the statewide annual median wage of $43,463 a year. And also with an expected employment change of over 400 jobs over a 10-year period. We did use long-term projections to inform where that strongest growth was to be expected, and as well as other data sets just to give a little bit more context and provide some economic highlights for each of the industries. Today, we're asking for commission approval of the report with permission to make minor non-substantive changes as we prepare the final layout that we will publish on our website. So that does conclude my remarks. We appreciate your consideration. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those.
Any comments or questions?
I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work in compiling this report and all the data.
No question.
It's a good report.
Thank you.
The 10-year projection, I think, looks very sound. I think it captures the reality of the marketplace. I would ask that next year that we bring this 30, 45 days sooner to the commission, because there's two things that 302-019 ask us to do that we're really not doing in this report. The first of those things is it specifically gives us the responsibility to make recommendations to the legislature for legislative action regarding these long-term projections that we're doing. And we're not doing that in this report. We're out of time for this year. I don't see us being able to do that in this report. And I think if we would come 45 days sooner in the year, I think the commission could then consider some specific recommendations to the legislature. I think that might be helpful to the legislature. The second thing that would take this already strong report, I think, make it significantly more useful to people who aren't necessarily doing workforce development every day, is if we did a little look back also at our projections, what really happened in real time, what's already happened in the past. I think what we'll find is that it will strengthen our 10-year projections moving forward. I think it gives the report some context that makes it perhaps a little more useful to people who don't do this every day or do this for a living. And so that's an idea we can explore next year as well, just in terms of strengthening those projections, strengthening like we've been doing this for like 10 years now. So we've got a lot of look back data that I think really supports some things that we're looking 10 years down the road from today at. But more specifically, I think it will also support some strong recommendations that we could make to the legislature that would be well within our purview under this law at 302-019. So, nothing, I don't think there's time to do any of that this year. I think it will enhance the report for next year. We'll just get a little earlier start and be able to do that. Any other comments or questions?
None here.
None.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the annual occupational shortage report concerning existing and projected shortages in high demand, high wage occupations as recommended today by staff.
Second.
It's been moved second, and we're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate the feedback, and we will take that into consideration.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. So agenda item 13, proposed amendments to 40 Tech Chapter 853.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, my name is Kira Hollywood, and I am with the Vocational Rehabilitation Division Older Individuals Who Are Blind program. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval are proposed rule amendments to Chapter 853, Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind. The proposed rule will amend Chapter 853 to update eligibility for the OIB program, clarify language for consistency purposes, and complete its 4-year review. The main highlights of the revisions include updated eligibility criteria, updated language to help clarify processes within the program, and the addition of the OIB helpline phone number to increase referrals for the program. Also, Texas Government Code requires that every 4 years, each state agency review and consider for readoption, revision, or repeal each rule adopted by that agency. TWC reviewed the chapter as part of the proposed rule in accordance with the statutory requirement. Staff is recommending submitting the proposed rule for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor, non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with the publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the proposal of amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 853, Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind for publication in the Texas Register and public comment as recommended today by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and second, and we're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's agenda item 14, proposed amendments to 40 Tech Chapter 801, Local Workforce Development Board Rules.
Good morning once again. I'm Joel Mullins with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration are proposed rule amendments to Chapter 801 on local workforce development boards. These proposed amendments will amend Chapter 801 to address changes in Texas Government Code, Section 2308.256, as a result of the passage of House Bill 1615 by the 88th Texas Legislature. HB 1615 requires that each board expand its membership to include a representative of the child care workforce. Staff recommends submitting the proposed rule for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor, non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with the publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
None.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the proposal of amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 801, Local Workforce Development Boards for publication in the Texas Register and public comment, as recommended today by staff.
My second.
It's been moved and second, and we're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's agenda item 15, final adoption of 40 Tech Chapter 800, reporting workplace violence rules.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm John Pokorny with Fraud Deterrence and Compliance Monitoring. Commissioners, before you today, for your consideration and adoption, are final rule amendments to Chapter 800 General Administration. In an open meeting on October 3rd, 2023, the Commission approved proposed amendments to add subchapter N to Chapter 800 to provide the form and content of the reporting workplace violence poster as required by HB 915. The proposed rule amendments were published in the October 2023 issue of the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. No comments were received. Staff recommends adopting the amendments to Chapter 800. Should the Commission adopt these rules, staff requests the ability to make minor, non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
No. Comments or questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the adoption of the new 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 800, Subchapter N, Reporting Workplace Violence, as recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you. It's agenda item 16, appointment of a Lone Star Workforce of the Future Fund Advisory Board member.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Serna. For the record, I'm Colin Bradley with the Outreach and Employer Initiatives Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration and approval is an advisory board appointment for the Lone Star Workforce of the Future Fund. House Bill 1755, which was passed during the 88th Texas Legislature regular session, requires the Texas Workforce Commission to establish the Lone Star Workforce of the Future Fund Advisory Board, consisting of education and workforce stakeholders to assist the commission in administering the program. It's very similar to the Jobs and Education for Texans program. This program has a 6-member advisory board, one of which is to be appointed by the commission. So staff recommends the appointment of Mr. Edward Crawford, co-founder and president of Coltala Holdings in Dallas, as a Lone Star Workforce of the Future Fund Advisory Board member appointed by the Texas Workforce Commission. Mr. Crawford, a U.S. Navy veteran, holds several advanced degrees in business, has a successful professional career, and has participated and led many boards, councils, and committees. Mr. Crawford has a desire to enhance workforce development efforts and brings experience in helping businesses locate diverse talent, including veterans. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
And none here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I move to appoint Edward Crawford to serve a 2-year term on the Lone Star Workforce of the Future Fund Advisory Board.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So agenda item 17, Rural Workforce Working Group Participant List.
Good morning again. For the record, I'm Colin Bradley with the Outreach and Employer Initiatives Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration and approval is a Rural Working Group Participant List. In an open meeting on September 11th, 2023, while discussing fiscal year 2024 statewide initiatives, the Commission directed staff to convene a Rural Workforce Working Group. The Commissioners asked staff to propose a list of working group participants for approval by the Commission. Staff recommends the following organizations and community colleges be invited as participants in the Rural Workforce Working Group as a part of the previously approved fiscal year 2024 statewide initiatives. For business and economic development organizations, staff recommends the Texas Midwest Community Network, the High Ground of Texas, Texas Rural Funders, Texas Forest Country Partnerships, Association of Rural Communities in Texas, Texas Organization of Rural and Community Hospitals, Texas Rural Health Organization, and for community colleges, Lamar State College Orange, South Plains College, Ranger College, Kilgore College, Texas State Technical College, Vernon College, and Laredo Community College. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
None here.
I've got one. Hey, Colin, can I get a little bit more information on the operations of these working groups? Kind of how many you think will be in the next year? Are they around the state, or they're going to just be here in Austin, kind of a thing? And also, is the end result to have recommendations to the commission to us on the end of these?
At the moment, we have only planned to have the one, and this is to influence what will be discussed and
Sure.
considered at the Rural Workforce Summit.
Okay.
We do plan on holding it here in this room, actually, just to get some more information about what challenges are being faced by our rural workforce partners.
So the commission took action on this back during the summer. This is the only working group that we've stood up so far, and it's relative specific to rural workforce.
Mhm.
This meeting, I guess, is going to be here, but there will be other meetings out and about. And yes, the end result is to make recommendations to the commission.
Thank you for catching me up.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the following organizations and community colleges for participation in the Rural Workforce Working Group as recommended today by staff. Texas Midwest Community Network, the High Ground of Texas, Texas Rural Funders, Texas Forest Country Partnership, Association of Rural Communities in Texas, Texas Organization of Rural and Community Hospitals, Texas Rural Health Association, Lamar State College Orange, South Plains College, Ranger College, Kilgore College, Texas State Technical College, Vernon College, and Laredo Community College.
A second.
It's been moved, seconded, and the vote unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I do not see a legislative report. Is there an executive director's report today?
Just two items. First, wanted to recognize one of our HR professionals, Belinda Kimball, for winning the inaugural HR Professional of the Year Award from the Central Texas SHRM chapter. We're very pleased about that and just demonstrates our HR department's professionalism, the individuals there. And then the second is a Star Award to one of our employees to be presented by Chuck Ross, our FIDCOM Division Director.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Serna. For the record, I am Chuck Ross, Director of TWC's Division of Fraud Deterrence and Compliance Monitoring. It is my great pleasure to be able to present to you a Star Award winner from the Department of Information, Insight and Innovation. And I believe you have a narrative in your binders about this, but I am unable to talk to you about that because essentially it's a roadmap for committing unemployment insurance ID fraud. And it talks about how Tan and you, who is receiving this award today, stopped all of these efforts. Since the pandemic in 2021, Congress enacted several responsive unemployment insurance programs, which while they helped in the immediate instance of the pandemic when businesses were closed, they unfortunately put a huge fraud target on the back of the unemployment insurance program. And so during the height of the pandemic, we were seeing unprecedented amounts of identity fraud. And that's when Tan and you joined TWC. And he was instrumental in helping us start from a place where we had limited experience with combating unemployment insurance ID fraud to really finding it and shutting it down. And so you'll see now in the reports that I send out on a monthly basis, we stop 99.8% of all ID fraud claims that come in before they pay out. And that's largely because of Tannen and the work that he does with us. And lastly, I'll just, the only analogy I can think of is it's with ID fraud, it's kind of like this never-ending game of whack-a-mole. You have one come up here, we take care of it, another comes up here, we take care of it, and so on and so on. And so Tan and you is essentially our giant hammer in whack-a-mole. And without him, we would not be successful. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to commend to you, Tan and you, for the Star Award. He's done tremendous work. He's an astonishingly bright young man, and I hope we are able to keep him at TWC. That's all I have. I'm sorry, this is cloak and dagger, but I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I just have something quick to say. I wanted to congratulate Tannen on receiving the Star Award, and I'm glad to see that his hard work is officially being recognized. His list of work is impressive. He has made an impact on so many TWC departments that helps us serve claimants to the best of our ability. So again, thank you, Tannen, for all that you do.
I hope he's teaching his friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey.
Okay. I'll say something, but I didn't realize I had to make a speech, but I am very grateful for the award from FIDCOM and Mr. Ross and Mr. Solinsky. It's a pleasure to work with them on a daily basis, and I do have to give my thanks as well to Adam Leonard and Shu Ching, my real bosses, for their unwavering support. They give me a lot of freedom to approach and innovate to combat fraud for the Texas Workforce Commission. So again, I'm very appreciative of this award. Thank you so much.
Great.
I'm glad Mr. Cerna made you come up here. Congratulations. An award well earned. Well, congratulations to Tannen once again. Important work for the agency, important work for the things that we're doing, even moving forward. Is there any other order of business come before the commission? No? Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Get some rest because January will be here before we know it, and then the fun begins again, so. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I say.
We move second to adjourn, we're adjourned.